Hello everyone, welcome to another session of our HPP Innovation Week. I am Mario Gonzalez, Applications and Food Processing Specialist at Hyperbaric. In the next few minutes, we are going to enjoy an interesting session entitled Top Trends and Nutritional Benefits of Non-Thermal Technologies with my colleague from the Applications Department, Margarida Rodriguez. Hi Margarida.
Hi everyone, hi Mario.
How are you?
Fine, and you?
Fine, thank you. Between the two of us, we will talk about the latest trends of non-thermal technologies for the food and beverage industry, and in more detail, HPP. I will start with my part on non-thermal technologies, and then Margarita will follow with the nutritional benefits of using HPP in food products. Remember, before we kick off the session, that we have an open chat where you can write any questions or doubts that you have. And if we don't have time to answer all of your questions at the end of the session, we will get back to you by email as soon as we can. So I will start with a brief introduction of myself. I have been working at Hyperbaric since for 6 years now. I have recently obtained my PhD focused on the validation of HPP technology as a safe approach for the preservation of low-acid beverages, such as coconut water in particular. I am also enrolled in several activities at the company, being one of them the validation of our bulk equipment for liquid food processing. So, okay, I will try to share my screen and start with my presentation. Okay. I think it's on display right now. So, as I said before, I will start with this presentation of top trends and nutritional benefits of non-thermal technologies. First thing that I will discuss is consumer acceptance, that as you may know, or maybe you haven't really stopped to think about that, but consumer response to food is not only based on sensory characteristics of the products. Consumers nowadays try to learn much more about the food and the way it is processed. And there are also other critical factors such as culture, religion, past experiences when we tried certain food products, attitudes, beliefs. So you see that it is actually quite a complex decision to why consumers decide to acquire a food product. Of course, price and cost are also important reasons. So in this regard, consumers generally consider traditional foods to be safer. I guess we all agree on that. This is because we know how these foods have been produced, the processes that are behind, and that's why consumers think that those traditional products are safer. So when developing a new product, it is important for consumers to understand how it is made. And if new technologies are used in the production of such products, consumers not need to understand how those technologies work and how they affect the quality of the product. So here you can see a few screenshots from some news or even scientific articles regarding maybe the latest trends in food intake. And you can see that ultra-processed foods are linked to heart diseases. They are cheap, but they can also harm you. As I said, there is also some research regarding this. So it is obvious that ultra-processed foods are not so good for our health. And new technologies are like trying to overcome this limitation. So actually the success of a new technology and the success of a food product in the market is always conditioned by consumer acceptance. And so the thing that we are discussing here is how the latest consumer trends benefit from new technologies. Okay, because as you see, these new technologies try to overcome these limitations and try to deliver foods that people will accept or not. So here you see the cover of this magazine from the Institute of Food Technologists, the IFT in the US. And this is very interesting because it shows us like the most important trends for this year 2021. And you see that plant-based foods are on top. This is nothing new for you, but also functional foods, baby food. We can even see pet food at the bottom. So yeah, food producers have to think how to deliver these top trends in a way that consumers will accept them. And of course, not all processing technologies give the same benefits to the different categories. So yeah, here you can see some of these minimal processing technologies that are not currently like implemented in the food industry, but they have a potential, let's say. First one, ultrasounds. It is used for surface decontamination mainly, but not for food preservation. Cold plasma is under research. Same goes for ozone. Ozone is used as a disinfection agent, but it can be used in combination with water to disinfect raw materials. And at the bottom, we have high pressure homogenization and pressure assisted thermal sterilization. Both technologies are not currently implemented, but I think they are close for industrial implementation. Okay. Regarding the technologies that are implemented, we have microfiltration. This is very well known. Same goes for high pressure processing. Ultraviolet radiation is also quite common for liquid foods. Irradiation, and also pulsed electric fields, PEF. Okay, these non-thermal technologies are already used by the food industry to deliver foods that meet consumer demands. So yeah, this table here I took it from a very recent study from this year actually, and it tries to show the reasons for using non-thermal novel technologies, not only non-thermal but novel technologies. So yeah, you can see actually that the better nutrient retention or sensory quality is like the main factor that pushes the food industry to select a new technology to deliver those foods. And actually, yeah, HPP is maybe the most common technology because it is very versatile and it is able to preserve food, but also to maintain the nutritional and sensory quality that, as you saw in the previous slide, was the main attribute that people require. Okay, PEF is following HPP, and well, you can see there that the others. Are not so important, okay, but of course they have some important. Okay, irradiation was one of those non-thermal technologies that are used in the food industry, but they have like a bad image. This is maybe because consumers have a misconception regarding this process, and there is a misunderstanding between irradiated foods and radioactive food. Okay, irradiation doesn't make food radioactive, but we have to explain that to consumers. It is also hard to explain the benefits and the reason why we use this technology. And yeah, the possible solution to make this point clear is maybe to educate the consumer and to do more research on the properties of irradiated food. Also, because of this unwillingness from consumers, regulations try to adapt to that. Actually, it's not easy to place in the market some irradiated products. Okay. UV radiation is another minimally processing technology. It is used in the US for juice processing. juice and apple cider. As you can see, it is actually approved by the FDA. But in the European Union, for instance, there is a no novel food approval for this particular technology. There is an approval for UV radiation as a tool to enhance the vitamin D content in milk or mushrooms, but not as a tool to preserve and extend shelf life of food. And yeah, we have to be also careful trying to explain this technology to consumers because there is maybe a confusion between irradiation and UV radiation. Okay. PEF, pulsed electric fields, is another of these minimally processing technologies, but it is also very hard to explain to consumers how this process works. It also creates some skepticism or awareness regarding electricity. So yeah, marketing should focus on explaining how this process works and how the food can benefit from the applications of PEF. Okay. But yeah, as I said before, together with HPP is one of the most implemented non-thermal technologies in the food industry. And as you can see here, there are some companies that own the two processes. So this particular company, Hoogesteger in the Netherlands, they produce juice and they own the two technologies to preserve juice. So now that I have explained almost all of them, we can compare them in this nice table here. As you can see, all of them are non-thermal technologies besides PEF that requires like a mild heating of the liquid foods before treating. Otherwise, it is not very effective in activating microorganisms. Most of them can be used for treating solid foods. This is not the case for PEF. We can use PEF for other applications other than extending shelf life on solid foods, but not for shelf life extension. And UV radiation is only used for the contamination of surfaces. Okay. Of course, microfiltration is not possible to apply on solid foods. Besides irradiation, all of them can be used for processing liquid foods. The only limitations here for UV is maybe that very turbid fluids cannot be processed, but there is some research ongoing. And yeah, of course, microfiltration is limited only to very liquid products. HPP does not allow continuous processing. Same goes for irradiation. But both of them work in a batch way. But yeah, if you couple batches, we can mimic more or less a continuous production. As you can see, maybe HPP and UV are the most widely implemented in the food industry. Irradiation only benefits from toll processing companies. And yeah, PEF still needs to enter the market for more products. And yeah, of course, all of them are approved, otherwise they wouldn't be used by the food industry. But some of them have still some limitations. Okay, as I said, irradiation is very restricted, and PEF still needs approval from some food safety authorities. I know in the particular case of the US. Company moved an industrial equipment to run validation of the technology. So hopefully, in the short term, we can find more PEF products in the US market. So yeah, now we can also compare them from processing cost point of view and their advantages and disadvantages. So the most expensive one is maybe HPP because of the high capital investment costs and because it is also not continuous. So productivity is short compared to other technologies that can process continuously. Some of the advantages of HPP, for instance, are that it is very versatile, it is worldwide approved, it is a post-packaging intervention in the case of in-package HPP, so there is no need for aseptic or clean operations after processing. This is not the case with PEF or UV, for instance. And yeah, some of the disadvantages of irradiation and microfiltration we have already discussed. So yeah, this was all from my side. Thank you for following my presentation. And I will try now to introduce to my colleague Margarita. So before giving her the word, remember that we have an open chat where you can actually ask any questions, and we will try to answer at the end of the session. So my colleague Margarita has been working in the applications department at Hyperbaric since the beginning of 2020, giving support to clients all over the world. For her master thesis, she studied the potential of high-pressure processing as an extraction technique of bioactive compounds from microalgae and fruit compounds. So, Margarita, I think you can start sharing your screen.
Okay, thank you very much, Mario. Can you see my screen?
Yes, you are ready to go.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. So just like my colleague Mario said, I'm going to talk about nutritional benefits of HPP. So I am going to start by giving some general considerations about HPP, that being a non-thermal technology, and as we saw before with Mario, the most accepted among professionals, it is very different from the non-thermal pasteurization. So in the HPP process, pressure is transmitted uniformly throughout the product regarding its mass and shape, meaning that the pressure is the same in all points of the product. Therefore, there are no gradients in this technology. Also, HPP will enhance processes and reactions that are accompanied by a reduction of volume, which we know is by the Le Chatelier principle. Therefore, it will affect the proximity of some interactions, affecting mainly non-covalent pumps. Okay. So like we see here in this picture, HPP will only affect the purple interactions. So it will only affect the non-covalent bonds. Where areas, it will not provide enough energy to break covalent bonds. And the weakest interactions, the non-covalent ones, will be broken, leading to structural changes in proteins, carbohydrates, and other biomolecules like proteins, like we see here. The structural changes won't affect their biological value of these biomolecules. And by the same principle, HPP will have little impact on chemical constituents like nutritional properties, color, and other attributes. Therefore, we will also better retain antioxidant properties, and that's what we are going to see in this presentation. Okay. So throughout my presentation, I'm going to present several examples on how HPP can help to retain the nutritional and sensorial properties of food. Of course, the effects will depend and vary accordingly to the ingredients and to the conditions of pressure and time. Okay. So in this case, we have two purees, tomato puree and carrot puree. The bars on the left correspond to the tomato and these ones to the carrot. We can see that the carotenoids content in tomato is higher for the HPP samples, processed at 5,000 bars for 15 minutes, in comparison to both the non-processed puree and when it was applied heat. We will see later how we can increase the content of a biocompound with HPP. And for the total final content of the processed samples were also very similar to the non-processed ones for each puree. Okay, so now we have here another example with strawberry puree. And we can see that for both anthocyanins and vitamin C, HPP can better preserve the content of these bioactive compounds when compared in red to thermal pasteurization. Okay, so like I said before, it's possible to obtain a higher concentration of some compound with HPP. And how is that? because we are not going to create more compounds, of course. So sometimes HPP can lead to the damage and break of vegetable cells by inducing changes in the membranes, resulting in the release of functional compounds to the medium. And like I said, we are not creating new compounds. We are just releasing the ones that we already have. And of course, we are going to detect this very high concentration by using the method of analysis. And again, in the example that I have here, we can see that the concentration of carotenoids in all these purees is higher after HPP, meaning that we have released more compounds to the medium, and then they were detected by the laboratory method applied, so the method of analysis. Okay. So more examples. Now for tomato puree under 6,000 bars or 87,000 psi for 5 minutes. Here we are going to see that there are no significant differences between the fresh and the HPP sample in the total lycopene and the total carotene. And the same goes in this case for raspberry puree and for strawberry puree. So here we see for vitamin C, there are no big differences in the fresh sample and in the process by high pressure processing. Okay, so now I'm going to show you a different type of product. In this case, we have pre-cooked chicken patties, and they were subjected to different pressure treatments between 2,000 and 6,000 bars during 10 minutes of maintenance. It was evaluated the total tocopherols, polyphenols, and the global antioxidant capacity. And again, we can see that there were no significant changes even between the different pressures and in comparison to the control, meaning that in this case, even if we increase the pressure used, we didn't affect the active compounds concentration. And this is actually very interesting because if we increase the pressure in these samples, we can achieve a better shelf life because you're going to have more microbial inactivation. Okay. So now here, let's see some more examples, but this time throughout the shelf life of products. So I'm going to start with the concentration of carotenes in avocado that remains stable for 40 days, you can see here. And I have another examples in the case of nectarine puree, and it's clear that the HPP better preserves, again, the important compounds in comparison to the thermal processing, in this case, 85 degrees Celsius for 10 minutes, even through the 30 days of shelf life, so in this case for the nectarine. And when we go see the graphic for the pumpkin, we see the same kinds of results. Okay, so now here we have another example for fruit smoothies. And again, we have a very similar result than before. So we used 6,000 bars for 3 minutes. And we see that in the day 0, we have with HPP a higher content of ascorbic acid, total phenol content, carotene, lycopene than with the areas with the thermal pasteurization. We have a less content of these bioactive compounds. And even after 45 days, we still have the same thing. Okay, so same thing, the same result happens. We have better results with HPP than thermal pasteurization. Okay, so now here I have the example of edible seaweeds. Different types, and of course, they will behave differently under pressure, and the amount of phenols and antioxidant activity will vary among them. On the left, we see that antioxidant activity in most cases was actually higher than the initial content. For the same reason, like I said before, that we release these more compounds to the medium, and then we can detect a higher concentration. So in this case, only with Undaria here, it was obtained a lower concentration of the both parameters measured after HPP, since the bars represent the percentage of regarding the initial content of antioxidants or phenols. And then after the 30 days of storage, it was reevaluated, and in most cases, the concentrations obtained in the seaweed didn't vary much or even increased. So again, the same kind of results. We can preserve nutritional quality with HPP. Okay, so I think now you can see that we can retain the nutritional properties with HPP. And we have another very important advantage, because we can actually use less additives and have a clean label with HPP, and also we are going to have, of course, a healthier product. In addition, we do not create new compounds. Therefore, with this technique, we will also avoid food contaminants usually present when it's applied heat to food, which is another big advantage, because we can have a healthier compound, a healthier ingredient and food. Okay, so now I will briefly talk about HPP and how it helps them also maintain the sensorial properties of food, being usually the flavor similar to the fresh product, which is one of the most characteristics that the consumers desire, and also brands. And in this case, we can also have, and we can see here, a better retention of color. We see here with me and Ben, and we can also see the example of Little Tummy when we use, in this case, HPP in comparison to the other types of processing. Okay, so now going on to some examples. On the left, we have a sensorial test where different properties were evaluated, like the color, the odor, its intensity, the taste, etc. They were evaluated by a panel that drank orange juice processed at 6,000 bars for 15 minutes. And if we pay a closer look to the scores, the HPP processed samples are very similar to the fresh ones, which is what we desire. And in this case, the panel didn't seem to notice any difference. And if we go to another example, on the right, we have strawberry puree. And in this case, it was processed at 5,000 bars for 15 minutes. And again, the scores of the HPP processed samples are very similar to the fresh ones, meaning that HPP was able to retain the sensorial quality. Okay, so now we have here another example, in this case with berry purees, putting 6,000 bars for 3 minutes with blackcurrant puree and raspberry puree. Although that corresponds to the concentration of different volatile compounds, being the red ones, the ones that match the thermal pasteurization, using 80 degrees Celsius for 5 minutes, and the blue ones correspond to HPP, and of course the gray ones correspond to the untreated sample. We can see that there is an overlapping with the untreated purees, meaning that there weren't many changes between the flavor of the HPP puree and the unprocessed ones. Again, the same kind of results as we've seen before. And now here's another example with different scores, like color, aroma, and appearance were measured on raspberry, blueberry, and strawberry puree. And again, we have obtained the same kind of results. So for overall acceptability, color, and aroma and appearance, the HPP samples match pretty close to the fresh ones. And now I'm going to do some last examples before finishing my presentation. And in this case, we have sugarcane juice. And this is actually a very nice product because it's very consumed in Asia and Brazil. However, due to its high content in sugar, because it's very sweet, it's very perishable because it will start fermenting right after being produced, which can be a huge problem if you want to increase its shelf life, if you want to commercialize it. And if we put thermal pasteurization, we are also going to affect sensorial attributes and lead to the appearance of an undesirable jaggery flavor and to some color changes. So HPP kind of comes here as a life savior because it will help to not only to better preserve the sensorial properties of sugarcane juice, but it will also help to inactivate enzymes, to inactivate microorganisms, and to extend the shelf life of this product. And it will allow to open new markets. And we can see here the same kind of result. The HPP processing, in this case, using 6,000 bars for 6 minutes, we were able to be very close to the unprocessed samples in comparison to thermal processing, which varies much more. And the scores here are better with HPP as well. Okay, so the same kind of results as we have been seeing throughout the presentation. And then on the right, we have shrimp marinated in wine rice. And again, we can see, and they even are very similar, the lines, because we cannot see clearly the gray one from the unprocessed samples, but we see here that the scores of the HPP processed ones at 5,500 bars at 5 minutes are very coincident with the ones from the unprocessed samples, whereas the thermal ones have a lower score for sensorial qualities. Okay, so with this, I am going to finish my presentation. I would like to thank you, everyone. So don't forget that we have a chat and you can just send us your questions. And I think we are going to try to answer a couple of them now. So Mario, I'm going to pass the word to you.
Great, Margarita. Thank you for the presentation. It was very nice.
Thank you.
So, yeah, you are right. We have some questions in the chat. Not many, actually. I think it was very clear, everything. But yeah, for instance, someone wonders if we can add probiotics to juices. Do you think we can do that with HPP?
Yes, so the answer is yes, we can add probiotics with HPP, and we're just going to add them in a different manner that we usually know them. So because with HPP we can actually inactivate beneficial bacteria, yeasts, and molds. And if we have a probiotic beverage like a juice or a smoothie, so we are going to inactivate them. And we are also going to inactivate lactic acid bacteria in some extent, even though they are very resistant to HPP. However, we can add spores, bacterial spores, because we do not inactivate spores using this technology, HPP, which in this case, I would suggest that you can add Bacillus coagulans, and it's actually one of the applications that is being used already. And if you have any question on to get more details about this, you can always contact us at HAPS Hyperbaric, and we are going to help you. And I also recommend you to see the presentation that me, Mario, and Vinicio we are going to do in the afternoon. It is about microbiology, and I think it can also help you to better understand why those spores aren't inactivated and why some bacteria are. So yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you. This is good news, I guess, that we can
Yeah.
probiotics. And yeah, someone also is wondering why is HPP more like accepted compared to other non-thermal technologies. So I can maybe try to answer that because I
Mhm.
covered that in my presentation. And I think that it has to do maybe with the uh, because it is very versatile. I mean, with HPP, you can process almost anything from liquid foods to solid foods. Um, So yeah, the range of products we can obtain is very big, and yeah, I think also that pressure is understood by consumers as a physical intervention, um, and differentiates from other words such as electricity or radiation or these things that consumers are maybe more aware. And yeah, I think that the big potential of HPP to produce safe food with good taste and good quality um, is the main reason that yeah, that helped consumers to accept HPP products compared to other minimally processed products. But
Yes.
actually, yeah, all of these technologies have a huge potential, and hopefully we can see in the market soon more products, because at the end consumers will benefit and enjoy all the healthy attributes that all this minimally processing delivers. You see, we try to move away from ultra processed food, and
Hmm.
yeah, I think we need more research to show that these technologies are safe, and yeah, at the end consumers will enjoy food processed by any of them. Mm.
Yes, that's a very interesting answer. I have the same question, and I have the same answer, and I think we are just going to move far away from the ultra processed foods
Mm.
and try to achieve better nutritional properties for everyone. And it's our maybe our duty and to try to educate consumers in this regard. Yeah.
Yeah, just remember that we are here to help. So if you wonder how your company can benefit from the application of HPP technology in this case, you can count on us because we are happy to help you to put in the market healthy products. Okay, so this is something we have in common here to help you to achieve that goal. Okay.
Exactly. Okay.
So yeah,
So
I think we are gonna leave it here. If you found this session interesting, don't miss the next one where our colleagues Vinicio and we will join in another interesting session on how to control microorganisms, parasites, and viruses on food. Okay. So thank you everyone for joining. Yeah, see you later.
thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.